because I think it's brilliant. Research is alchemy. And I think that is an amazing quote because it really says you can go out there, you can research these agents, these managers, you can even research their assistants. And I know that sounds stalkery, but the point is that you want, in your book, you're suggesting you want to have some kind of point of contact where you can be familiar with them. All right, we have on an awesome guest today. I am so just lucky to have this gentleman on. This is the producer of Pretty Woman, Under Siege, and The Mothman Prophecy. He's the author of Conquering Hollywood. This is Gary W. Goldstein. Thanks for being on.
Hey, good to be with you, Jeffrey.
Well, I love the book. It really puts into writing. It's kind of funny. Reading is like, oh, I do that, I don't do this, and I do that. So it was kind of nice when I see that I'm doing something right, and then it's also room for growth. And I think this is such an important book out there to help people really understand how to form relationships properly. Before we kind of launch into all of the myriad of questions I have, I wanted to get a little bit of your origin story and what led you to writing this.
My origin story is, I grew up in, I was born in New York. I grew up in San Francisco, though, in the heyday of the 60s. And I went to UC Berkeley. So I was a long-haired hippie who thought I was going to go into the music business. I produced the music concerts for the UC Berkeley campus. So during the riots and the tumult.
Oh, wow.
Unseating a president and ending a war, I was bringing in Joni Mitchell.
Okay.
And so it was a really, I've got great timing, and it was a really beautiful place. I went in, I became a criminal defense lawyer and worked in a foundation in the ghetto. I've done a bunch of different things, all of which were like these delicious chapters and experiences in a lifetime, but they weren't the right fit for my temperament, my dreams. So I ran away to LA. Because I wasn't like one of those kids who's like, I gotta be in film. I wasn't a cineast. I just like everybody else, I love storytelling, I love films. And I was a huge admirer, especially in the very early days of Francis Ford Coppola and certain other filmmakers.
So how old were you when you went from criminal defense lawyer to becoming a producer in LA?
I left that, I think I was like 31 when I quit that career and said that's...
Yeah, I mean, you were pretty set. And then you were like, I'm going to go and I'm going to try this new thing. That's amazing.
Yeah. So when I got to LA, those sudden realizations, like you're all inspired and you're excited and you launch into something and then you realize, I have no idea what I'm doing. I didn't know a soul in LA.
Yeah.
Know a lick about the film or TV business. I didn't know the job titles. I didn't know anything. And I kind of had that awakening moment. So LA is always sunny. And I saw not far from where I lived, an outdoor health club with tennis courts and pool and paddle tennis courts and all this stuff that I loved. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to make that my office. So I joined a club. And I figure when people are there, they're, first of all, during the week, who's there? Probably a lot of freelance creatives. And secondly, are they going to be more or less relaxed? They're going to be more relaxed.
Yeah.
I'm going to hang out there. I'm going to, ask people on the tennis, what do you do? And if it was anything remotely related to, entertainment, it's like, oh gosh, let's enjoy a great game of tennis. And then if you have the time, it would be really amazing. It'd be life-changing to be my 5-minute mentor. Is that cool?
I love that 5-minute mentor.
And everybody said yes. So brilliant. I literally spent a year making at least a couple of hundred friends, poolside, tennis court, what have you, knowing that I really needed the mentoring. And I wanted to hear it from a lot of different angles because I didn't even know what job to go after. I did not want to be an attorney.
Right.
Someone one day sat me down and said, maybe you should consider, how to represent people, but you don't want to be an attorney. Maybe you should consider being an agent, or better yet, a manager. And I said, what's the difference? And they told me the difference. And I was like, I'm a manager.
I
And they
love
said,
it.
okay, but it's 1981 and management only exists for actors, people in front of the camera. And I thought, not anymore. I want to, I mean, God bless actors, but I really want to work with writers and filmmakers, directors.
Yeah.
And I started a literary management company. And, you know, when I would tell people that, executives or agents or, you know, whatever, they'd kind of not really understand it. And they actually, some people actually hung up like, I don't know who you are, forget about it.
Right.
So I learned that I don't say that. It was very simple. You know, I just say, I represent.
Nice.
And if they pushed me, I just say, yeah, well, I'm an attorney, which was a true statement. I just didn't happen to be their attorney.
Right. Right.
But I stopped getting hung up on.
Nice.
And I realized the name of the game, you know, it was easy to get clients. If you stay on a tennis court long enough and tell people you represent people just like them, they go, what?
That's awesome.
So I had a lot of I had clients. But anyway, I don't want to spend a lot of time. So the first 3 years were a lot of bloody knees and bloody noses and making mistakes and just, you know, like not making any money and whatever. Typical of a startup in any industry, really, or, you know, anyone young in life trying to aspire to the next thing. So I was learning my lessons, and I kind of started to figure out, I'd say around the third, well, certainly after 3 years, it became a real business. And I just figured out how to get people in on the inside of the business.
That's awesome.
How to introduce them, how to get them jobs, how to start earning money. And thus I was earning commissions. It turned into a really, really great business until the writers went on strike in '88.
Right.
And we knew it was going to be a long, which it did turn out to be a year-long strike. So I turned to one of my young clients who was a writer who had dropped out of film school and very talented. And I said, look, I'm not going to sit on my hands. I'm not going to be anxious. Let's go do something. So you've always wanted to direct, dust off one of your, let's create a script or dust off a script. I'm going to raise, $17, whatever, and let's go make a movie.
It's awesome.
And we did. We made a movie called, I raised $200,000, which, by the way, there was nothing digital back then.
Yeah.
Filmmaking was really expensive back then.
Yeah.
So $200,000 seemed to me a fortune. And we made a film with Shannon Tweed and Bill Maher and Adrienne Barbeau, et cetera, called Cannibal Women in the Avocado Jungle of Death. And
I've never heard of it.
That was it. I mean, I had the bug. It was like, oh my
That's
God,
awesome.
So big and delicious. This is where I want to live. So I sort of dissolved the management company, and I've never been afraid of change.
It's impressive how you can really come into something and have no clue how to do it, but you're able to really parse, okay, this is what I need to do, and really kind of figure it out and then become a success. And it's like you've started your career over multiple times and we're able to achieve a huge heights. I want to kind of get into how you do that, because you talk about in the book 4 pieces to success. You say passion, goals, tools and strategies, and daily action. And that's the one that got me, was the daily action.
Yeah, it gets most people. The other stuff isn't that hard. The discipline of just stop talking about it and do it.
Yeah.
But do it every day. Do tiny little, it's like, it's not, you're not going to be Hercules the first day. It's okay. That's what trips up 99% of humanity.
I think you're right.
But my attitude about it was, the thing about, like I think I learned early on in life that change was my friend, which was an interesting, decision, which has been very advantageous. But in the process of that, what I also realized is it's really, success is there's certain mechanics. And if you just acknowledge it, and develop that muscularity, that habit.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So for example, if I want to make a change, I would look around and I would literally research and make a list. And it's in the book. I call it my top 100 list. Back then, I didn't have a name for it.
It's
But I
awesome.
would research and just make a list on a piece of paper. And okay, I want to try and meet people at these companies, or I want to meet these individuals, or
Yeah.
if only I could reach this person. What I learned is no one's unreachable. It's 100% only how you approach them. And if you're humble and honest and vulnerable, you win.
See, that brings me to a quote that you have in the book. So, and I'm going to get to the quote in a second, but the one thing I like about the daily action is you said it's 30 minutes a day. Spend 30 minutes a day on your tools or strategies, or whether, you know, it's querying or whatever, 30 minutes a day. And anybody with a full-time job can do that. They can take 30 minutes out of Netflix streaming time, sit down and put it towards their goal. And I think that's great. You make it very approachable, but you have this quote in the book, and I wrote it down because I think it's brilliant. Research is alchemy. And I think that is an amazing quote, because it really says you can go out there, you can research these agents, these managers, you can even research their assistants. And I know that sounds stalkery, but the point is that you want, in your book, you're suggesting you want to have some kind of point of contact where you can be familiar with them.
But it's only stalkery if you come from a place of, I'm not deserving, I'm not valuable enough. They're going to feel weird about it. But that's your mindset. It's not theirs. So let me flip it around. And by the way, I'd even forgotten that phrase, research is alchemy.
It's a great quote, man. It's brilliant.
But here's the thing. I believe that everyone, no matter how early, or you know what if they're not on the ladder, low rung of the ladder, wherever they are, we, each of us, have such a unique story and such a unique set of gifts that we just need to we need to commit to the craft and learn to be better at it. But we all come with our humanity, and that alone makes you equally valuable. So get over that stuff about insecurity and self-doubt, and you know, we all talk to ourselves like we wouldn't dare talk to our worst enemy as badly as we talk to ourselves. But that's okay.
Fair point. I love it.
But what you got to do is say, despite that, I am not just going to set aside half an hour, but I'm going to learn what to do in those 30 minutes that I can feel good about, and I can check the box every day and know I've made progress. And you can measure the progress. It's easy.
Yeah.
So I think how you approach people is part of the key. And it's like, you do it with grace, and you do it with respect, and you do it with honesty, and say, look, I'm a turnip. I just fell off the truck. And that's, you know, but I, you know, and back then we didn't have the internet. Now we have this thing.
Oh, I know. It's
Holy
amazing.
crap. So I love LinkedIn.
Yeah.
I go on LinkedIn and I type in the name of an agency, or I type in keywords, or I type in, you know, whatever it is. And I will come up with, I can find out, you know, most of the employees who work in an agency, even the assistants, from the bottom to the top. And I go in at the bottom.
Yeah. I
build consensus by having an ally at the bottom. And I don't mean that disrespectfully, entry level. And that way it's less threatening. I don't need to speak to the name on the door. I need to speak to someone in the four walls, inside those four walls, who's a friend.
I love it. Well, because you talk about that. You talk about creating an ally using what you said is palm up networking, which is how I interpreted it, is creating value for the other person. So that way, when you're talking with them, they don't think, oh, this guy's a taker. This guy literally wants to help in whatever way they can. And I really think that's great.
And by the way, value doesn't mean, oh, you've got to come in with guns blazing and, you know, deliver something substantive. I can approach a person just by saying, you know, look, I've researched you, and the reason I did, so you tell them the truth. The reason I did is because I don't know you and you don't know me, but I know this company, and I've researched you. The caliber of work that comes out of your office is really a role model for who and where and what I want to be in this business. And I don't know how you got that gig, because you must have beat out 100 people for it. And I looked you up on LinkedIn, and you went to this amazing school and you did this, and you have the, I see you have an interest in X, Y, or Z. What have I done? That's called, number one, it's true. I did go to that effort. That's flattering. That's honoring them. And I'm calling now, look, you don't know me, but it would be the most valuable gift I could imagine would be if you have 3 minutes for me. I have 1 or 2 questions, and if you could give me an honest reaction, and so that there's nothing for them to do once they hang up the phone. But number one, you gave them a promotion in life, because all
yeah,
day long, most people are trying to brush past them to get to the boss.
yeah.
The opposite. It's little stuff like that, that a shared human moment.
Yeah, and mindfulness, like you're really paying attention to that interaction. And you even mention on here, which I think is really cool, ideal times to call an assistant, which I was like, nobody knows that, but you have it right here. It's between 12:55 and 2:15, and I was like, wow, that's so great. Like just having a little detail like that, even in the book, is amazing.
Yeah, I mean, usually, at least, Pacific Standard Time, because we're in LA, lunchtime. And when we say lunchtime, we are including drive time for the boss to get to and return from the restaurant. But it's the same thing, in the evening, they're going to a drinks meeting. So it might be, 6:30.
Yeah.
Like they're not leaving the office early, these people.
No, they're all day, 12-hour shifts even, I've heard. So you're kind of living for work at that point, but you have to put the time in. So let me ask you something here about writing, because I get a lot of questions from people, and if they're trying to write for market, and I have people call me and, hey, what do you think about this script? And I say, well, are you passionate about it? And they go, oh, no, but this is popular. And I go, I think you should write for what you're feeling. And you have that right in here, authenticity. Write what you're feeling authentic about, what is your voice, instead of just writing for the market.
Yeah. It's early morning, or I'd be banging my drum, but there are a few topics about which I have a stronger and more impassioned idea of what success looks like from experience, and trying to second guess commercial, like, who was it? William Goldman said, nobody knows anything.
Yeah.
I remember Alan Ladd. What a gentleman, brilliant. The Ladd family, a dynasty in Hollywood. He was running MGM. I was developing at the time a film for MGM. And I remember him saying, which was shockingly revealing and humble for a man of his stature. And he said, I think sometimes I think if I had greenlit every film I passed on and passed on every film I'd greenlit, I'd have about the same batting average.
Wow.
Okay, that's from the top. That's from the summit of Everest, right? But here's the deal. From a representative, as both as a representative, as a manager and producer, working with a lot of young writers over the decades, I have a lot of experience with it. And my experience tells me one thing: it's ironclad. If you try and second guess what's commercial, you're going to be wrong. Our cycles of what works and what's popular shifts faster than you might imagine. So a film comes out and it's very popular, and you think, I'm gonna be the next whatever. By the time you've really polished that script, gotten it to an agent, gotten it out in the market, however you're going to do that, and the film actually then has to be pre-produced and produced and financed and released. If you're lucky, that's a 3-year cycle. That's if you're fast.
Wow.
Guess what? I wouldn't bet a plug nickel on the fact that that same movie would work the same 3 years later. So number one, I think that it's misguided. Number two, very importantly, you completely cheat yourself of the deepest joy possible by being a creator, by being a screenwriter, by being an artist of any kind.
Exactly.
Why be an artist if you're just going to be a mimic?
Yeah.
So
that's brilliant.
Number three, experientially, I believe that most careers, and here I'm speaking specifically of screenwriters, although you could draw an analogy for directing and whatever, but there's no question in my mind that the majority of successful, enduring careers are triggered, catapulted, exploded out of the gate because of one and only one screenplay.
Yeah.
And 99.9% of the time, that screenplay is something no one else could have written.
Ah, it's so true. Well, that brings me to something. Okay. Because we're running out of time, Gary, and I could talk to you for 3 hours. I'm sure that's not something that you want, but we're going to go. I want to give you my favorite quote from the book. Don't settle for being excellent. Choose to be amazing. Oh my God. Like I read that and that hit me because there are plenty of great writers out there, but to think about the fact that you can make it a choice to be the absolute best that you can instead of just kind of sitting on your laurels, that hit me.
I believe that's true. And I believe it's true not just in the narrow way people think of talent or career, which is, oh, you write really well, or you write exquisitely well, or whatever level.
Right.
I think the intention is all consuming. It's across the board. How am I going to conduct myself? How am I going to carry my person? How am I going to speak to people? Who am I going to intentionally target to bring into my inner circle, or at least have a bridge to a relationship bridge to them?
Yeah.
Who am I going to learn from? And that has, I used to call it, and I guess I still do. I developed a phrase years ago that no matter what I was doing as my work, that my job, my mission, mandate, was to court the best and the brightest. And I called it harvesting genius.
Oh, I love that.
So I want to go around life in any walk of life, not in Hollywood, in every area, saying, you know, I'll read a book by a certain author. I will be their stalker. Like you said earlier, I will find them and I will befriend them, or I'll call them to compliment them or write them. I'll find a way. I've done that so many times. And those authors are so stunned. And sometimes I get really specific. It's like, you said this on that page. Oh my God, you know, and then we get into, and here's why that hit me so hard.
Yeah.
Or whatever it might be. It is the only rule is the way in which you approach people is joyful, humble, and most importantly, honest. So whatever you say, it can't be BS. It has to be something that's really real.
Yeah.
And people respond to that. That's how we're wired. So yeah, I think that you can choose to be outstanding.
I love it. The book is Conquering Hollywood. I recommend it. I really enjoyed it. I don't often pull quotes from books and throw them at the author, but I had to for this one.